Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome back to a stock market outlook video sponsored by MarketSmith. And today, as always, we'll talk through the market indexes, some leadership stocks as well. They'll move on to a few different sources of sentiment, the IBD Big Picture article, and finally the Wishing Wealth GMI signal. So to start things off, let's talk about the indexes, take a look at how they're acting. Obviously, we had a significant push up the right-hand side of the space here, and now we're forming a little bit of a handle pulling back into the 50-day moving average on declining volume. And many of the leadership stocks look just like this, pretty much forming these tight handles, and it remains to be seen whether we'll break out of these flags to the upside or to the downside. But regardless, you should have a plan for basically either occurrence. So all in all, the Nasdaq looks strong. We're above the moving averages, and my current view is an uptrend. Looking at the S&P 500, this looks extremely similar here, but actually a little bit stronger. Tech has been weighing down a little bit, and you can see we're right at all-time highs, once again going kind of sideways in this flag formation and above all the moving averages, above a rising 21 EMA and 50 SMA. So all in all, things look pretty good from these two indexes. Diving a little bit deeper into the growth space, let's take a look at well, first of all, let's take a look at just the small caps, IWM. This is once again forming the short-term flag, but obviously it's a little bit weaker. It's within the base, and you can see there's a stage 2B base, and we're still just within this trading range that we've pretty much been in for 10 months, almost a year now on the Russell 2000. If we zoom out just one more here and one more, you can see we started this base back in March of 2021. So it's been quite a while. We had that breakout and that failed. We entered another pullback correction mode, and now we're starting to build up the right-hand side, and I'd love to see us break above these levels and break back above the 50-day moving average, which is this red line right here. We're basically consolidating right at that 200-day moving average. Looking more at small cap growth, you can see a pretty similar story, and it's actually a little bit weaker than the IWM. Once again, forming this flag, I'd love to see us break above this, get back above 300 as well as the 200-day and 50 SMA. And I think if we get back above a rising 21 EMA and 50 SMA like we were back in this period, that's kind of the Goldilocks zone. That's when the real money is made, as these growth stocks start to trend over the course of weeks and months and really make progress for everybody. So I'd love to see this start to participate. And also I like to take a look at the FFTY, which is another great ETF. When you're looking at growth stock specifically, very tight in here below the 200-day moving average. Once again, within a longer term base, we had that failed breakout, but we're starting a push up the right hand side, although on lower volume. So we'll have to see how these play out. Be ready, as I said, whether we break to the upside or to the downside. We'll just have to see how things basically resolve themselves. Taking a look at a few leaders, I always like to highlight Tesla. As Tesla goes, kind of the entire growth space follows suit. And you can see we're pulling back into 50 SMA after a nice push off the bottom here on declining volume. So things look pretty constructive, but we'll have to see whether we stick above that 50 SMA and the 21 EMA here, as well as the 1000 level. I think this level is super key. And I think it would actually be constructive. We just kind of base out here above 1000, above the moving averages, and then kind of form the right side of the base and kind of develop it a little bit more, because it is a little bit wide and loose in this area. And we'd love to see kind of some tightening action, suggesting that the kind of supply is being wrung out of the stock, and we can really have a significant move after that supply is gone. So this is a nice prior uptrend from this stage 2 base. Now there's a little bit wider and loose, and as I said, I'd love to see some tightening action above those KMAs. But overall, of course, earnings sales margins are super strong. Estimates are great for 2022. I think for whatever stock you're looking at now, this is the more relevant number compared to the 2021 numbers, of course. And also this indicator right here, this either green arrow to the upside or red arrow to the downside, pay special attention to that, because that gives you a sense of what kind of the analysts are thinking about the annual EPS estimates for this year, which is a significant basically metric for the institutions when they're considering investing in these growth names. So keep an eye on that. And overall, Tesla setting up reasonably well, and it's kind of the textbook growth stock as of this moment. And we'll have to see where this this setup basically goes, whether it resolves to the upside or to the downside. Also, I'd like to take a look at NVIDIA, since the semi names have been so strong. It's very similar to Tesla actually. Here you've got this pullback over the past few days after a strong push off the bottom, holding that 50 SMA, and is just below that 300 level. So I'd love to see this get back above 300 and build out the right side of the space, maybe go up flat line here, then push out towards all-time highs. So that's what ideally happens. And overall, SMH, if we just bring up the ETF, looks very similar, and there's a lot of leading names potentially in here. ON, Marvel, what are some other ones? LRCX. A lot of these look very, very similar and are forming these short-term flags. So we'll have to see how these act. And I think definitely you want to have some exposure to the space because I think it is one of the leading groups. And another leading group in my mind is MU, the data storage group, SIMO as well in here, PSTG, and also STX. These are acting pretty well here. And I think MU is the leader here. Great push up the right hand side of the space, and then you had that earnings breakout and a little bit of choppiness in here. It looks like it's starting to base below this level. I'd love to see it stick above this level right here, as well as of course 90 if it does pull back to the pivot. But if it goes sideways for a few weeks, I think that would develop a really nice handle within this longer term consolidation and base. So we'll have to see how this plays out. And within the semi space, I think it's definitely worth mentioning AEHR, which is super powerful up the right hand side of the stage 3 base. And I'd love to see a handle form, go tight for a few days at least. And then, like I said, you can basically manage risk versus these swing lows, buy through the pivot or through a downward trend line like that. And another name worth mentioning is HIMX. These are kind of the faster movers within the semi group here. Super powerful up the right hand side. You had a low cheat buy right here, also a breakthrough, a pivot here. Now it's just kind of short term extended. I'd love to see it kind of base above 15, hold that level maybe on some market weakness, and then reconfirm to the upside and form that handle and move out of this longer term base. But definitely worth watching these semi names and having some within your portfolio. However, of course, there are some names that have gone hit pretty hard. Let's take a look at Roku, which is a FinTwit favorite, just in a downtrend as of this moment, below a 50-day moving average, and any stock below a declining 50-day moving average is suspect, and these are not my focus. It is potentially trying to bottom here. You've got kind of some pivots here, but the RS rating is 12. It's just not a leader anymore in this space. Other names like DOCN are shaping up a little bit once again after a potential bottom here, but still they're within an overall downtrend. Let's take up some others. ASAN, also in a downtrend. You've got gap down. So these have some flaws within their bases, and they're just not the leaders in the market as of this moment. And they could work, but they could also go out and base for the next 2 years. Looking at SQ, this is in a downtrend. What else? PayPal. I know a lot of people like to try to find bargains, but basically the truth of it is that these are in price downtrends, and institutions net are distributing, and you really have to hold above these lows here, or it'll just start another kind of cascade to the downside. So wait for these to get back above at least their 50-day moving averages, start to see those moving averages curl up in support. There'll be plenty of time. These aren't just going to blast off to all-time highs without you. If you like these companies, stalk and wait for them to resume their uptrends. So with that said, unfortunately, my TC2000 is experiencing a little bit of trouble today. So we're just going to jump right to sentiment. And overall, you can see a decrease in bullishness from 60.3% to now 50.8%. This is still reasonably high, but it's still kind of early on in the trend. So this kind of bullishness is to be expected. Looking at the name exposure index, this is a pretty big jump from 67 to 85. I'd love to see this kind of stay at these levels and not get back towards the high 90s, 100s for sure. And we'll have to see what happens. Looking at the bulls versus bears poll, we're still near 40, which I think is a good sign. There's still some fear in this market, and the put-call ratio is still just kind of in no man's land here, near 0.6. So overall, in terms of sentiment, not much to say on that front. Moving on to the IBD Big Picture article, the headline is Stock Market Saw Big Gains in 2021. Here's why 2022 could be another winner. Overall, I discussed kind of the action of the major indexes, the big cap names, Tesla, Microsoft, Apple, which had tremendous years. They discussed the FFTY a little bit and also highlight HIMX, which we just went over, and talk a little bit about some leading names here. And also highlight OLPX, which is actually my stock of the week, which I did a write-up in Substack, completely free. That'll be linked above right now and in the description. Definitely check that out. I kind of go through two main setups that it showed up the right-hand side of the space, both an undercut and rally as well as a pivot breakout, which also had a confluence of other setups within it. So definitely go ahead and check that out. I think it's a great resource to learn kind of how I trade and view the market. So overall, their current outlook is a confirmed uptrend, 2 distribution days on the S&P 500. Here are some leaders up in volume and down in volume as well. Looking at the Wishing Wealth blog, GMI signal is still green since December 27th, and we're in day 4 of a QQQ short-term uptrend, with the GMI score on Thursday being 5 out of 6. So overall, taking everything into account, my current view is once again a confirmed uptrend. And overall, we did have some consolidation, some profit taking late last week, but I think that's normal given this super strong push off the lows here. And we'll just have to wait and see how these flags resolve themselves. I think there's a lot of great setups as of this moment, and I'll be posting my next list of ideas later today. So go ahead and check that out. If you did enjoy this video, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.